Imagine walking in on your wife and daughter and discovering they're secretly planning a date with your boss. What would you do? How would you react? That's exactly what happened to me, and I disappeared without a trace. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. Leave a comment below on how you would handle this shocking situation. I had always been a man of routine, waking up early, heading to work, coming home to my wife, Jenna, and daughter, Mia. Life was predictable, and for the most part, I liked it that way. My job as a mid-level manager at a fast-growing company had its challenges, but it also provided stability. My family, as far as I could tell, was happy. I supported them both, always tried to give them everything they needed, and tried my best to be the best husband and father I could be. But all of that changed in one instant. It started like any other evening. I came home from work, tired but content, and walked into the living room. I expected to find Mia doing her homework and Jenna preparing dinner, as usual. But when I entered, I saw something that instantly made my stomach drop. A conversation I wasn't meant to overhear. From where I stood in the hallway, I could see the faint glow of the kitchen light spilling into the living room. Mia and Jenna were sitting on the couch, their voices low, but I could hear every word clearly. "We can't keep this from him forever," Mia said, her voice tight. "He'll find out eventually." "I know, Mia," Jenna replied, sounding almost nervous. "But it's not like we're doing anything wrong. We're just having a little fun. He won't even notice." I felt my heart race in my chest, and I froze in the doorway. What were they talking about? What was this secret between them? The words didn't make sense, and my mind immediately began to race with possibilities. "Do you think he'll be okay with it?" Mia asked. "He'll be fine," Jenna responded confidently. "We just need to keep it low-key for now. He'll never suspect a thing." I could barely breathe. What was my wife and daughter keeping from me? And then it hit me like a ton of bricks. My boss, David. He had been texting Jenna for months now. At first, I thought it was business-related, but now I started to put the pieces together. I quietly stepped back into the hallway, my mind spiraling. The doubt began to fester. Was my wife having an affair with my boss? No, that couldn't be it. But why were they planning something together? Why didn't they want me to know? I felt sick to my stomach as the possibility of betrayal hit me with full force. I had always been proud of the fact that Jenna and I had a solid, trusting marriage. Sure, there were rough patches, but we had always come through them stronger. But now, it felt like that trust was being chipped away, piece by piece, and I didn't know how much more I could take. That night, I didn't confront her. I couldn't. I didn't want to believe what I had overheard. Instead, I went to bed in a daze, trying to shake off the images of what I had heard. But the more I thought about it, the more it made sense. Jenna and Mia had been spending a lot of time together lately, leaving me out of family activities. There had been nights when David's name came up in conversation, always in a casual way, but I had never thought twice about it. Now, those moments haunted me, and I couldn't shake the idea that something was going on behind my back. The next day, I couldn't concentrate. My thoughts kept drifting back to the conversation I had overheard, and I couldn't ignore the sinking feeling in my gut. I had to know the truth. So I decided to take action. I decided to follow them. It wasn't easy, and I felt like a fool, but I couldn't help myself. I had to find out if my fears were true. I didn't want to believe it, but I had to be sure. So I followed them that afternoon. The next afternoon, I made the decision that changed everything. I knew it was reckless, but I couldn't shake the growing suspicion gnawing at me. I had to follow them. I had to know if the things I overheard were real. So I waited until Jenna and Mia left the house. They told me they were going shopping, a casual statement that didn't raise any alarms at the time. But this time, I wasn't going to let them out of my sight. I grabbed my keys, stepped into my car, and followed them at a distance. It felt wrong, like I was invading their privacy, but my mind was too clouded with doubt to stop. As I drove, my heart was pounding in my chest, my thoughts racing. If I was wrong, I would be ashamed of myself for betraying their trust. But if I was right, I couldn't even imagine the consequences. I followed them for about 20 minutes before they turned into a parking lot near a local restaurant, a place I had seen David and my wife's name come up in passing conversations. I parked a few rows away and waited. It wasn't until they stepped out of the car that I saw him. David, my boss. The man I had trusted with my career. The man who had always been friendly, professional, and respectful. Seeing him with my wife and daughter in broad daylight was like a slap in the face. They were walking side by side, chatting as though nothing was amiss. My heart dropped into my stomach. They seemed comfortable with each other. Too comfortable. There was a familiarity in the way they laughed and spoke to one another, something that felt entirely out of place. I watched them enter the restaurant, and that's when it hit me. They weren't just having a casual meeting. They were enjoying each other's company in a way that I had never seen before. I waited for what felt like an eternity before I could muster the courage to get out of my car. My hands were shaking, and my breath was shallow. I could feel the panic rising in my chest, but I knew I had to confront them. I had to know the truth. I walked slowly toward the entrance of the restaurant, trying to steady my nerves, but every step felt like it was getting harder to breathe. When I reached the door, I peeked through the glass. There they were. David, laughing at something Jenna had said. Mia sitting across from them, looking more like an adult than the daughter I knew. The image felt so surreal, like a bad dream I couldn't escape from. My thoughts were clouded with a mixture of disbelief, anger, and hurt. I could barely process what I was seeing. I had been right all along. This wasn't a business meeting. They were out together, enjoying a meal, acting like a family. My family. It was too much. I turned on my heel and left the restaurant, my heart pounding in my chest. I couldn't breathe. I didn't know where I was going or what I was doing, but I had to get away. I couldn't face them yet. Not like this. I drove aimlessly for what felt like hours, the roads blurring in my mind. I was too consumed by my emotions to focus on anything around me. My thoughts kept circling back to the scene I had just witnessed, the man I had trusted, the woman I loved, and my daughter, all sharing something that I should have been a part of. They had been planning this behind my back, and I hadn't seen it. I had been blind, naive, and foolish. As I sat in the car, the weight of the situation began to settle in. What was I supposed to do now? Confront them? Call them out on the betrayal I had just witnessed? Or should I disappear, just like I felt I had been erased from their lives? The more I thought about it, the more the idea of disappearing seemed to make sense. If they didn't need me, if they could just carry on without me, why should I stick around? I had given my all to my family, but it felt like it meant nothing to them now. I was the outsider, the one who had been cast aside while they carried on with their secrets. I had a choice to make. The truth was in front of me, and now I had to decide whether to confront it or walk away. My instincts screamed at me to leave, to let them live their lives while I figured out my own. But I couldn't shake the thought that I was being pushed aside, that the people I loved the most had left me in the dark for so long. I couldn't keep living like this. As the days passed, I found myself paralyzed by the weight of what I had witnessed. Every moment since I saw Jenna and Mia with David replayed in my mind like a never-ending loop. I felt numb, distant, and utterly defeated. The betrayal I had witnessed cut deeper than anything I had ever experienced in my life. I couldn't understand how the woman I had loved and the daughter I had raised could keep such a secret from me. Worse, they had done it behind my back, without any consideration for the trust I had placed in both of them. I didn't confront them that night. Instead, I retreated into myself, my emotions spinning out of control. The pain was unbearable, and every time I looked at Jenna or Mia, I saw the lies they had been keeping. I couldn't look at them the same way anymore. How could I? The people I thought I knew best were now strangers to me. They had betrayed me, and it felt like there was no coming back from that. I considered confronting Jenna, demanding answers, but every time I thought about it, I was filled with a sense of dread. What would it change? I already knew the truth. David and Jenna had crossed a line, and Mia was complicit in keeping it hidden. They didn't need to say anything more for me to understand the gravity of the situation. But confronting them would be painful, for all of us. And what would it accomplish? Would I be able to repair the broken bond between us? Could we ever go back to the way things were? The idea of disappearing, of leaving without a trace, started to seem like the only option. Maybe it was the coward's way out, but it felt like the only way I could escape the suffocating pain. If they didn't need me, why should I stay? Why should I be the one to hold on to a family that had already moved on without me? So I packed a bag, nothing too elaborate, just a few clothes, some essentials, and I left. I didn't tell anyone. No one knew where I was going. I didn't want to be found. The act of leaving felt like a relief, as though I was finally shedding the weight of betrayal and stepping into a new life. One where I didn't have to pretend anymore. I didn't know where I was headed, just that I needed to be far away from the people who had hurt me. I drove aimlessly for hours, trying to escape my thoughts, trying to find peace. But no matter how far I went, the truth was always there, lingering in the back of my mind. The images of Jenna and Mia with David kept resurfacing, and the pain never left. I couldn't outrun it. At first, I stayed in small motels, moving from place to place, always feeling like I was running. I didn't want to go back home. I didn't want to face them, didn't want to hear their excuses. I couldn't bear the thought of seeing their faces, knowing that the people I loved most in the world had been deceiving me. But as the days turned into weeks, I started to feel a growing emptiness inside of me. The physical distance from my family didn't seem to ease the emotional distance. I thought I would find some sense of peace in being alone, but instead I felt hollow. I had cut myself off from everyone. No calls, no messages, no way for anyone to reach me. I had disappeared from their lives, but in doing so, I had disappeared from my own life as well. I couldn't run forever. The weight of the decision to leave hung over me like a dark cloud, and I started to realize something important. Leaving wasn't going to fix anything. It wasn't going to bring me peace. I couldn't keep avoiding the people I loved. Avoiding them didn't make the pain go away. It just made it worse. I had to face the reality of the situation, no matter how much it hurt. I couldn't disappear. I had to go back, face the truth, and find a way to deal with the betrayal. I couldn't keep running from the people I loved, even if it felt like they had already turned their backs on me. I had to find the courage to confront them and to understand the choices they had made. But first, I needed to heal. I needed time to process everything and to figure out what my next steps would be. I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't continue to let the lies fester. I had to take control of my own story, and that meant returning to face the people who had hurt me. It wasn't going to be easy, and it wasn't going to be quick, but it was the only way I could find closure. I drove back home that night. The drive felt longer than ever, but there was a sense of resolve building within me. I wasn't sure what would happen when I walked through the door, but I was ready to face it. Ready to confront the people who had hurt me and figure out how to move forward, even if it meant rebuilding everything from scratch. When I returned home, the house felt different. The familiar sights, the family photos on the wall, the couch where we had spent so many evenings together, felt distant, like remnants of a life that no longer belonged to me. I hadn't realized how much I had emotionally detached until I stepped through the door. The quiet was deafening. No laughter, no chatter, just an eerie stillness. I could hear the soft hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen, but it was the silence that hit me the hardest. My heart was pounding in my chest as I stood there, frozen in the entryway, trying to find the words to break the stillness. I had disappeared for weeks, but now I was back, whether I was ready to face the truth or not. I hadn't told anyone I was coming back. I needed to do this on my terms, no expectations, no pressure. I wanted to see if Jenna and Mia were prepared to face me. I needed to see if they even cared. I walked to the living room and found Jenna sitting on the couch, her eyes red, as though she had been crying for days. Her hands were clasped tightly in her lap, her head hanging low. When she looked up and saw me standing there, her face drained of color. "David," she whispered, barely able to get the words out. "Where have you been?" I, I've been so worried. I didn't know if you were ever coming back." Her words stung more than I had expected. She seemed genuinely concerned, but I couldn't help feeling a twinge of disbelief. Had she really been that unaware of the consequences of her actions? Had she really thought I would just disappear without a word, only to return as though everything was fine? "I've been gone long enough to figure out what's been going on," I said, my voice colder than I intended. Jenna flinched at the tone in my voice, but she didn't speak. I could see the guilt in her eyes, the uncertainty. She knew, just like I did, that the time had come for us to face the truth. "You want to explain why I saw you with David?" I asked, my voice now laced with anger. "You want to tell me why you kept this secret from me? Why you and Mia thought it was okay to do this behind my back?" Her eyes welled with tears, but she didn't immediately respond. Instead, she looked over at Mia, who had entered the room quietly and was now standing by the doorway, watching the interaction with hesitation. My daughter. The one person I had always tried to protect, to teach right from wrong. How could she have gone along with this? "Mia," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "How could you keep this from me? How could you be a part of this?" Mia flinched and then took a step forward. "Dad, I didn't want to hurt you. I never meant for things to get this complicated." "Complicated?" I shot back, my voice cracking. "This isn't complicated, Mia. You and your mother were planning a date with my boss. How do you even explain that?" "I know it looks bad," Mia said, her voice small and apologetic. "But it wasn't like you think. It was just dinner. We didn't think you'd mind. We thought it was casual." "Casual? With my boss? Are you kidding me?" I was starting to lose control, and I could feel the anger bubbling up inside me. "You think I wouldn't mind you both spending time with him behind my back? After everything I've done for this family?" "Mia, you have to understand," Jenna interjected, her voice trembling. "It was never meant to hurt you. David and I were just talking. He's been there for me lately, and we got closer. But it was never supposed to go this far." I stared at Jenna, my mind racing. The pieces were falling into place now, but the picture that emerged wasn't one I could easily accept. She had been seeking comfort from David, and Mia, unknowingly or not, had been caught up in it. They both had turned to him in a moment of vulnerability, and now the trust between us was shattered. "I trusted you," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "I trusted both of you, and now you've gone behind my back and betrayed that trust in the worst way possible. I don't know how we can ever go back from this." Jenna and Mia sat in silence, both looking at me with tear-filled eyes, but the silence between us spoke volumes. There were no words left to explain. No excuses could make up for what had been done. I had been blindsided, and now I was left to pick up the pieces of the life I had built with them. For the first time, I felt completely and utterly alone. They had kept me in the dark, and now they wanted me to understand their reasons. But how could I? How could I accept their actions? Could I forgive them? The silence lingered for what felt like an eternity. I could feel my heart breaking with every passing second. This wasn't just about a date with David, it was about the crumbling foundation of my entire family. I need time, I said quietly, finally breaking the silence. I need time to process this. I don't know what I'm supposed to do now. I turned and walked out of the room, leaving the two of them behind. My mind was spinning with questions, but one thing was certain. Things would never be the same again. The days that followed felt like a blur. The weight of what I had learned about my wife and daughter, the secret dinner, the betrayal, pressed down on me with every passing moment. It wasn't just the act itself that hurt. It was the realization that the trust I had built with my family had been shattered in a way I hadn't anticipated. I had always thought that our relationship was built on honesty, on communication, but now it felt like a facade. I didn't know where to begin, how to fix it, or even if I could. I spent the first few days avoiding any confrontation. I needed time to clear my head, to sort through the emotions that were clouding my judgment. The anger was still there, but it was mixed with sadness and confusion. How had it all gone so wrong? How could Jenna, the woman I had spent years with, and Mia, my daughter, have kept such a secret from me? It wasn't just about the affair with David. It was the deceit, the lies they had woven around me for months. I felt like I was losing everything I had worked so hard to build. During this time, I started reflecting on my role in all of this. Had I been too controlling? Had I smothered them with my expectations and demands? I had always tried to be the strong, reliable figure in the family, but perhaps I had become too rigid. Maybe, just maybe, I had pushed them away without even realizing it. But that didn't excuse their actions. They had kept me in the dark, and I was still struggling to wrap my head around why they had done it. I started avoiding home, spending more time at work, even when there wasn't anything to do. My boss, David, who had been at the center of it all, was no longer someone I could look up to. The thought of him sitting with my wife and daughter, acting as though nothing was wrong, twisted something inside me. I had trusted him. He had been my mentor, someone I had confided in, and now I had to face the fact that he had crossed a line that I could never unsee. There was no turning back from what had happened. But then, after a few days of silence, something inside me shifted. I realized that running away from this, avoiding the inevitable confrontation, wasn't going to solve anything. I couldn't keep living in this emotional limbo. I had to face my family, confront them, and see if there was any way to rebuild the trust that had been destroyed. I couldn't let my life be consumed by anger and resentment. One evening, after work, I walked back into the house. The tension in the air was palpable. Jenna and Mia were sitting in the living room, their eyes red from crying. They had been waiting for me to return, to give them the chance to explain, to offer their side of the story. I stood in the doorway for a moment, gathering my thoughts. Part of me still wanted to walk away, to never look back, but I knew that wasn't the answer. I had to find a way to confront the truth, no matter how painful. "I'm here," I said, my voice steady but full of emotion. "Let's talk." Jenna looked up first, her face filled with a mixture of guilt and relief. She stood up and walked toward me, reaching out as if she was afraid I would disappear again. "David, I'm so sorry," she whispered. "I never wanted to hurt you. I don't know how it got this far." I could see the pain in her eyes, and part of me wanted to believe her. But the hurt ran too deep, and the damage had already been done. "I don't understand, Jenna," I said, shaking my head. "Why? Why would you do this? Why didn't you come to me if you were unhappy? Why keep me in the dark?" Jenna stepped back, the weight of my words hitting her. "I didn't know how to tell you. I was confused, and I didn't want to hurt you. But that was the mistake. I should have been honest with you from the start." I turned to Mia, who was sitting quietly on the couch, her hands wringing in her lap. "And you, Mia?" I asked, my voice softer, but still tinged with hurt. "Why didn't you tell me the truth?" "I didn't know what to say," Mia said, her voice trembling. "I didn't want to cause more problems. I thought it was just a small thing, that it wouldn't matter." The words stung, and I could feel my chest tighten. "A small thing?" I repeated, my heart aching. "Mia, this wasn't small. This was everything." The silence that followed was heavy. The weight of the truth was pressing down on all of us, and no one knew where to go from there. We had reached a crossroads, and the next few words would decide whether we would walk away from each other or try to rebuild. Finally, I spoke, my voice quieter this time. "I don't know if we can fix this. I don't know if we can come back from this, but I'm willing to try if you are." Jenna and Mia both nodded, their eyes filled with tears. For the first time in days, we were facing each other, truly facing each other, without the walls that had been built between us. But I knew it wouldn't be easy. Rebuilding trust, after all that had happened, would take time. And I wasn't sure if we could ever truly go back to what we had. But one thing was clear. I wasn't ready to give up on my family. Not yet.